February 2021, Belal Muhammad's heart and work rate had won him 9 fights in the UFC, and he was on a 4-fight winning streak. Yet if you asked anyone how they felt after one of these fights, the answer was pretty unanimous.
What do you think of his performance?
He fucking sucked! That shit was terrible! That shit was terrible! God damn! Like, all you can do is wrestle, bro! Oh my god!
When Belal met Leon Edwards for the first time, he floundered, but the fight was cut short by an egregious eye poke. 3 years later, Muhammad met Edwards again and routed him for the UFC welterweight title. What happened? Well, relatively small changes made all the difference. Let's look at a classic and fairly typical Belal Muhammad performance. He moves Diego Lima to the fence, works up and down with combinations, and scores some points with takedowns along the cage. Even when he cannot fully take Lima down, the fence means that Muhammad is attacking and Lima is purely defending. But Diego Lima, like his brother Douglas, has famously horrendous ring craft. Within 20 seconds of any break in the action, or the start of any round, Lima had walked himself onto the cage, and Muhammad was free to throw hands or shoot, with Lima having no way to retreat. Even in the second Edwards fight, Belal Muhammad's masterpiece, he was unsuccessful when he shot out in the open and Edwards had room behind him to work with. In the first Edwards fight, Muhammad never came close to trapping Edwards along the fence. This was partly down to footwork, but also due to timidity. Every time he walked to Edwards, Edwards circled around and Muhammad had to start from scratch. Every time Edwards attacked Muhammad, Muhammad would back up all the way to the cage, putting 20 feet between Edwards' back and the opposite fence. And because he felt so uncomfortable, Belal began using these sort of running attacks that you see all the time in MMA, overreaching, getting easily countered, and not really achieving anything. The secret of the second fight was in challenging the cleanness of Edwards' striking. Edwards likes a long range and constantly corrects the distance before sniping with a single good punch or kick, keeping the pace low and the exchanges few. Belal Muhammad did not need beautiful ring cutting to get Edwards to the fence. All Muhammad needed to do was keep walking up to Edwards and making him uncomfortable. By getting too close to Edwards and putting himself in the firing line, Muhammad invited Edwards to either trade or correct the distance. Correcting the distance constantly while giving ground is tiring, and it can also make fighters run themselves onto the fence with no real ring cutting needed. Alexa Grasso did this same thing to Valentina Shevchenko in their first fight. Muhammad's jabs, which scored surprisingly well even in the first fight, became a constant feature in the second. It was not the kind of point-scoring jab that you spring into. Belal stood almost on top of Edwards so that he could just reach out and touch him most of the time without moving his feet. When Edwards came close to the fence, Belal could shoot and often lock his hands. The body lock is a powerful means to pull the opponent off the fence and begin to either throw them or get behind them. But the locked hands double was the real decider of several key rounds in Muhammad vs Edwards 2. Greg Jackson has called this the most powerful move in MMA because it doesn't exist in wrestling proper. You will recall that the one takedown John Jones got against Daniel Cormier was a locked hands double off the fence. Distance is the first line of defense in combat sports, and it is the most perfect. The moment you can crowd or corner an opponent and force him to commit to the next line of defense, you can start firing into the holes in that defense. Belal's lead hand uppercut slotting into Leon Edwards' high elbow cover-up is a perfect example of that. Belal Muhammad vs Leon Edwards 2 remains an important fight because it demonstrates two key principles. Firstly, where the fight unfolds is often more important than any individual technique, tactic, or skill. Secondly, sometimes the answer isn't to develop slick ringcraft overnight, but just to get in the other guy's face and not worry about being defensively perfect, but making the fight messy, simply so that it doesn't happen on the opponent's preferred terms. I make these videos for fun and they aren't monetized, but I host the Jack Slack podcast twice a week and write extensive studies on fights and fighters on my Patreon. Cheers!